2 years ago, when I was doing one of my annual Interpreting the Scares events in October, I covered the entire Scream franchise. At that point in time, I had only heard the fact that this movie was gonna happen. I wasn't really sure how they'd pull it off, though, because a big reason as to why the original series worked as well as it did was because of the brilliant mind of Wes Craven, who knew how to balance not only horror and comedy together, but also weave in those meta, tongue-in-cheek moments that we all know and love. So the question is, does this 2022 Scream film butcher the memory of Wes Craven, or does it pay respectful homage? Let's get into that. As anticipated, the Ghostface Killer is once again back at it, this time using the requel rules of film. That is, movies that aren't quite a sequel, not quite a reboot, but rather a mix of them both, which coincidentally describes Scream to a T. With the help of Dewey, Sidney, and Gale, a new group of teenagers must find out Ghostface's end goal before it's too late. So before I go any further, I wanted to answer the Wes Craven question. Does it honor or betray his memory? After all, nobody could ever be Wes Craven, but Wes Craven himself, right? To be honest, Scream actually does a fair job replicating what Wes Craven was all about. While I could sense his absence, it was more so on a really small detail. That is, in the original series, one thing that I always appreciated about it was that Wes Craven was able to craft a horror film that appeals to horror fanatics, yes, but what was always more impressive to me about that Scream series was that it could also appeal to people that hated horror films as well, something that not many horror franchises have ever been able to replicate, or even try to replicate. This requel, if you will, appeals more so with Scream fans than it does specifically horror fans and haters alike. It's not a big deal though, as most people will not watch a fifth installment in a long-running series without at least first watching the original film. But if they did start here, it wouldn't have as big of an impact as the original 90s film did. Take it that way. Instead, what you have here is understandably a bit of fan service, but not overbearingly so. Lots of other critics have already pointed out the fact that in a lot of different ways, this film operates like a reboot or a remake. It is part of the point, or part of the rules of a requel, if you will, that it's a mix of a reboot and a sequel at the same exact time, and that works in theory, but it kind of falters in originality, because when it comes right down to it, they had a decade to come up with something new, something fresh, and they essentially just redid Scream 1 with different rules. And I don't know how to feel about that, because that's a technical aspect in the writing that I have to consider when I grade the film. So whenever you have a heavier balance of fan service in a film, the technical side of things aren't as strong. And that technical side of things, that's where potential awards are given out. So you have to ask yourself, what is more important to you? And thankfully, horror films specifically, it's usually more so in the fan service department that's more important to people. So throughout the series, these movies have flip-flopped from either leaning heavier in the horror department or the comedy department. And in this case, it's back to more horror than comedy. Also, the inclusion of our three main stars reprising their roles definitely skyrocketed the entertainment value for me, because without them and their combined chemistry, it wouldn't feel so much like Scream as it does. The rules of the requel make a lot of sense, and it makes you think, especially since it's somewhat of a new and heavily popular concept in film. I will not go too much into those rules here. Instead, just watch the movie. They're better at explaining it anyway. Who Ghostface is in this film and why they're doing what they're doing. It's a bit different than we've seen in the past, while also kind of being the same thing, and I did appreciate the approach there. Overall, I think Scream was a lot better than I really anticipated it to be. Wes Craven had a unique vision and directing style that, even though this film doesn't match 100%, it does a fair job of paying tribute to him in a way that I think can only be described as close to Wes Craven's vision as humanly possible, because nobody could ever match him exactly. So with that being said, let's grade this puppy. So from a technical, unbiased level, I would say that a majority of Scream is business as usual. It's nothing bad, nor is it anything extravagantly great that you'll see highlighted during award season either. It's just fair. It actually did a good job with some gory scenes and use of mystery when it came down to writing, so that was decent overall. But it's not a technical Marvel type of film. So this score overall, 72%. It is, however, a film that wants to entertain you above all else, which is why it has all that fan service, which will connect with my bias score, or just how I felt about it overall. Suffice it to say, I had fun with the movie, and I appreciated the tribute to Wes Craven. So this score will be higher than that technical score, at 80%. So when I combine those two scores together, we come to the final rating of 76%. 76 out of 100 possible stars. As far as where I rank it with the rest of the Scream films, I have it in second to last place. Scream 3 is still not that great overall, but my ranking goes like this. Scream 3 is the worst. Then you have this movie, Scream. Then in third place is Scream 4, Scream 2 is in second place, and then finally we wind up with the best of the best, which of course is Scream 1. And that's it. That is my thoughts on the new Scream film. What are your thoughts on this requel? Let me know in the comments down below if you thought it paid respectful homage to Wes Craven. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come up with my next review. And until then, peace out!